Good afternoon and welcome for GAPSULE, first of an industry dialogue series. My name is Dr. Swati Lad Naik, and I take a great pleasure to welcome each and every one of you for this GAPSULE program from DocMode Healthcare Services. It's the first of an industry dialogue series which aims at bridging the knowledge gap between the medical practitioners and the pharmaceutical industry for better healthcare services and a better treatment outcomes at the end. Yeah. So we have expert panelists who have joined us. We have with us Mr. Ketan Dhamanaskar, Managing Director at Exeltis India. We have with us other two panelists as well. I take a great pleasure to introduce each of them. Mr. Ketan is an energetic and seasoned business leader with extensive international experience in Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and South Asia, including India. Ketan brings to the table a rich and diverse experience in pharmaceutical industry across different therapeutic areas like prescription drugs, medical devices, and animal healthcare. On a clinical side, Ketan has worked extensively in the field of immunology, oncology, ophthalmology, gastro, women's healthcare, and nephrology. His ability to build, lead, and motivate teams has resulted in building and sustaining big brands, launching new business divisions, and turning around ailing businesses to profitability and growth. Prior to joining Exeltis, he has worked with prominent pharmas like Zoetis, Baxter, Novartis, Wyeth, Roche, and Fulford. Ketan is a Bachelor of Pharmacy from KM Kundanani College of Pharmacy and has Master's MBA from Jamnalal Bajaj Institute. He is an alumni of Harvard Business School, wherein he pursued the senior executive. Welcome, Mr. Ketan. It's really a pleasure to have you as a panelist for today's GAPSULE event. Next,
Thank
we
you,
have
Dr.
next we have with us Mr. Amitav Banerjee. He is a divisional head of Hello, Mr. Banerjee. He is a head of marketing at Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, a professional with more than 3 decades experience in pharmaceutical and biotech industry. He has worked in various value chains of pharmaceutical industry, currently working as a head at Dr. Reddy's for nephrology and critical care division. He is an achiever in maximizing the brand value through life cycle management and driving the organization with strategic marketing initiatives and efficient execution. He has successfully launched and built very important brands like Reddy at Dr. Reddy's, Pacliol at Panacea, Deflux, another innovative product by urology team of Dr. Reddy's, and Darbepoetin injection crest, the leader in the erythropoietin ESA segment at Dr. Reddy's. Amitav enjoys nurturing talent and developing the team to realize their aspiration through on-job coaching. He is an alumni of NMIMS Mumbai. Welcome, Mr. Amitav.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
joining for today's GAPSULE program. Next, we have with us a senior pharma industry expert, Mr. Ashok Kumar Bhattacharya, sir. Sir, thank you so much for joining and giving your precious time for today's GAPSULE event. He is a former executive director, country manager of Takeda Pharmaceuticals India. Currently, he is an independent strategy enabler and panel member with the Global Consultings. He has over 39 years of experience in global pharmaceutical MNCs like GSK, Merck, Takeda. As a successful manager in various roles like general management, sales and marketing role, etc., he is actively involved in discussions with government regulatory authorities and Japanese embassy, and he is a recipient of Lifetime Achievement Award for outstanding contribution in the pharmaceutical sector during the International Service Pride Awards in 2022 in Delhi. He is a recipient of Icon of Healthcare Award at the South Asia Pacific Healthcare Summit and Business Awards 2022. He has been a member Leadership Excellence, Harvard Business Square. He is a member of CII National Committee on Pharma during various tenures. He has been a part of multiple committee of OPPIs, have been a panel member at multiple healthcare seminars, summits, CEO roundtable meetings, academic and industry academias. Currently, he is a panel member of global consulting organizations and have been advising global consulting firms on current healthcare landscape in India, entry strategies, organization structures, etc. He has been an advisor to medical affairs organizations as well. Sir, thank you so much for joining for today's GAPSULE event, and I'm sure that your varied and vast experience of so many years, more than 4 decades experience dealing with pharmaceutical and the healthcare sector will definitely bring a lot of pearls to the pharmaceutical practices, and these young dynamic aspirants who have joined today for today's event will definitely get some new tips for their enhancement of their scientific pharmaceutical activities. And
Thank you, Dr.
definitely Ketan
Swati.
and Amitava, yeah, Ketan and Amitava also brings a lot of rich experiences from their current organizations as well as their past experiences with the past organizations. And I request all the panelists to answer to some of the questions that we will be dealing during the panel discussion through their real world brand experiences, so that the aspirant or the participants can have a deal, they can connect to the brands and those activities more precisely. I'm sure you all will do that. So do we start with our panel discussion, or you all want to have some one line to share about the program?
I think we could, Dr. Swati, we could start with the panel discussion.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, fine. So, as we understand, the pharma sales and marketing encompasses all the activities that are executed at a different individual level, as well as at the organizational level. We categorically strategize our events for the medical rep to execute. Then, at a higher level, from the head office, we try to drive some of the activities, and at the organizational level, we conduct or initiate or execute some of the major big ticket activities. But more likely, invariably, it does happens. Having an experience since last 20 years with various pharmas, I have also observed that when we are charting down our activities, our concentration is more on the metro cities, tier 1 cities, where the KOLs are accumulated, concentrated. And in this process, at times we are not intentionally, or we are not able to cater to the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And we understand that 70% of the population in India is in rural areas, and where the rural practitioners or the rural physicians at times may get neglected. So today's topic, we will try to deal how to cater to these tier 2 tier 3 city physicians. Okay, so let me begin with my first question with Mr. Ketan. Has the pharma industry, do you think has the pharma industries have taken enough initiatives to fill the knowledge gap among physicians in the tier 2 tier 3 cities? What's your take on
Well,
this?
I think not really. If you actually look at it, and if you look at some of the statistics that are there as far as India is concerned, right? A very large healthcare, kind of turnover. You're slated to reach the entire spectrum of healthcare. If you look at it, right from not only pharmaceuticals but medical devices, diagnostics, nursing services, e-health, etc., is slated to be roughly around $370 billion by end of 2022. Expected that financial year we will probably end up with roughly around $345 billion. Okay, and then I think this is an industry which employs roughly about 4.5 million people, and almost 2.7 million people have been added in the last few years alone, creating close to about 5 lakh jobs a year as far as this industry is concerned. Our public expenditure on health is increasing. The government is taking initiatives to kind of ensure that health reaches into the rural population as well, either through digital initiatives or through their insurance programs, etc. Having said that, I think medical tourism is increasing. You look at the e-health market size is increasing as well. Your doctor to population ratio, which once upon a time used to be very adverse, today it stands as roughly about one doctor for roughly about 850 people. Okay, which is pretty good based on WHO standards if you look at it. in terms of number of allopathic doctors that you have, you're looking at roughly around 13 lakh allopathic doctors across the country. And if you look at Ayush doctors with alternate medicine, whether it's Unani, homeopathy, or Ayurvedic doctors, you're looking at roughly about 6 lakh doctors. The question is, I think, twofold. We said that when we as leaders, formulate strategies for our products and for our brands, right? We typically have two things in mind. One is, how do we reach the cream of the doctors, the opinion leaders, the guys who are at the top, and then and once they adopt our products, they adopt our brands, we hope that these brands then percolate in terms of prescription down to the other doctors. Okay, that's the first thing. So I think when we develop our strategies, I think primarily it is keeping in mind our KOLs and the top doctors. Okay, and of course there's an element of ROI, or should we say, in terms of how many prescriptions per doctor could I expect on a certain medication. Also, the fact that we are a branded generics country, which basically means that competition is extremely fierce. Your focus is on productivity per rep. So how much does a rep give us? And if you have a rep who works in tier 2 or tier 3 cities, you might not get the same kind of productivity that you have in a metro, for example. Okay, so I think these are conflicting factors which work with a financial goal or economic mindset, and when you work with it, right? I think the key here to understand is, if we have to, so to answer the question, have we really reached out to tier 2, tier 3 cities? Many companies have, but is the level of education, is the level of knowledge that a company would impart to the doctor would be similar to that in a metro? Would they have the same opportunities as a doctor in a metro? I don't think so. Yeah. So obviously there is a gap which needs to be filled in that aspect. Okay, is my take on this.
I do agree. Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot can be done. Definitely, some pharmas are trying to reach out, but as you rightly said, I think that ROI against the cost involved, reaching out to these tier 2, tier 3 cities, is something which one has to balance it out when they are
absolutely.
When they are trying to do something like this. And as you rightly said, that yes, for the new product, no one wants to take that risk, because a lot of back end cost that we have to first retrieve, and then we look at the further business from it. But can someone look at the mother brand which is well established? When I have been associated with this industry as well, when I have met some of the doctors in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, they always say they always have some inner desire to write a new prescription with a new product, but they are apprehensive because they feel that they haven't been taken for the CMEs or events for knowledge about this product or the disease. So what do you think, Mr. Amitav, that enough number of doctors are they involved from these tier 2 tier 3 cities for these seminars or scientific activities that you design for your product?
Yeah, thank you, Swati. The challenge is that there are two kinds of world that is there. One is the multinationals, cutting edge technology, new products, who have the capability to do a lot of good scientific seminars. And then there is another is the pure generics, as Ketan was mentioning about the branded generics or Me Too products, whatever it is we can call. So the companies who are having large generics are today more focused on the rural India, second tier, three tier cities. Uh, the landmark was Mankind, who started this model, and today almost every big pharmaceutical companies are eyeing towards that, because more than 20%, even if the market is not yet developed, less than 20,000 populations, city, towns, or villages, more than 20%, 22% is the IQVIA data is reflecting that their business is up to that. So there is a lot of opportunity. There are few companies who are doing it, but yes, then the model is something different, and the multinationals or the big Indian pharma company who are having cutting edge product or good scientific products, they are not able to focus earlier in these markets. Now there is a new model coming up, and there is lot of if you see lot of alignment is happening, lot of co-promotions or taking over the products. The big brands are taken over by the Indian houses from the multinationals and taking it to the large base rural market. So this is how the models are going, the business is going. But yes, there is a need for creating knowledge, creating awareness, education among these places, which physically may not be always possible. So that needs to be worked out. So currently, this is the scenario when where there is a haves and somewhere it is have not. The capabilities are not well distributed. Yes, there is a gap, and this is the opportunity for Capsule to bridge this.
Yeah, definitely. We definitely agree with your piece of advice in this segment. But you talked about some new model. Would you please brief about this
Like
new
for
model?
example, there are many companies like recently uh, Dr. Reddy's has taken over Voveran and calcium sendose kind of molecule, where the
Mhm.
reach of Novartis was limited to tier 2 cities maximum, or it
Mhm.
was going in some places, it was not going in all places. So
Mhm.
now with the reach of Dr. Reddy's model and spread
Mhm.
of manpower, so now these products will be taken up in a large uh, areas. So the companies are taking interest. The company will invest into the awareness, knowledge exchange programs in multiple ways of omni-channel model, through not only by the conventional way, but newer models are coming up in terms of digital models are also there to create the reach and create an awareness for these physicians to get these benefits. One
Definitely.
example I'm quoting right now. Similarly, this is the trend now. All big companies are eyeing towards getting good molecules and getting into the deeper into the market.
So the sales team reach out to these tier two, tier three cities is equally important, as Ketan was mentioning, that we need to have definitely ROI if at all we do some activities for these tier two, tier three cities. What's your
Second, another
comment?
important thing is happening, just to add it
Yeah.
here. For example, in super specialty things like earlier, um, Ketan must be correlating that most of the patients of Eastern India were traveling to Bombay, the erstwhile Bombay, today Mumbai, for Tata Memorial Hospital and all these hospital and CMC Vellore, etc. So all the people from the different parts of the country were concentrated and going to the center of excellence, whether it is
Right.
Delhi, Bombay, or Chennai, etc. Today, even in the smaller second tier, three tier city, there are a lot of good cancer centers are coming up. For example, of cancer. Similarly, nephrology. Similarly, gastroenterology. So all these super specialty segments are coming up in this segment in these models, and then the lot of experts are also coming there. So people are comfortable in getting treatment at their own place than to travel far-flung areas. So that is a model that is also emerging, because of which again the companies are trying to get into these markets faster. Again through
Correct.
various models, various channels.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that new model, as well as yes, the health infrastructure, which in the past was not so advanced in the rural areas, but it's happening slowly. So, what do you think? What a pharma industry or the associations can, how do they bridge the gap? Do they connect with the government bodies to help these tier 2, tier 3 cities, small associations or the small doctor groups to develop this infrastructure, and then you could take your brands to these cities?
So
So
yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Ketan, you
go
can
ahead,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead.
Go ahead,
No,
go
no, go
ahead,
ahead,
go ahead.
Amitav, no problem. Yeah, so it's
Okay.
like this, right? I think there are a lot of changes are happening on the healthcare scene. Okay, If you look at it, I think when you look at the healthcare industry, the pharma industry, probably 20 or 30 years back, we just didn't have the digital mode at that point of time, right? I think digital has played a key role in disseminating information, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, in education as well. And number three, in bridging the distances that are there between companies and doctors and companies and patients, or doctors and patients as well. Also, there are a lot of startups happening in the healthcare space. A lot of research happening in the biotechnology, clinical research, protein-based research, etc. Which is there's so many things happening around that eventually in a few years' time you will see many of these things kind of coming together and forming some kind of a sense or a pattern which will define the way the industry moves forward over the next the next decade. Okay, and traditional marketing and traditional marketeers and brand managers who typically design visual aids and small reminders, brand reminders, gifts, etc., sponsorships and stuff like that. I think we still many of these people are still ingrained so much into that particular in that particular way of marketing or reaching out to customers, which I feel is really passe. It's something that should not really happen. But then I do see that a lot happening in there. I think the focus of pharma companies should really, rather than giving freebies and gifts and stuff like that, despite all the regulations coming in new, from July onwards, these things continue to happen, which is really a waste of money as far as I feel, which could be better utilized, by companies for upping the infrastructure in the rural areas. They could possibly look at some CSR initiatives in adopting some primary healthcare centers or secondary healthcare centers. Really, kind of working with these physicians, either in a CSR mode or in a PPP mode, in a public-private partnership mode, where you could better utilize this money for education. I think the key is not to sell your product. I think what the mistake that we're doing is we basically take a brand and then we try to sell the brand. I think the key is to create awareness around the disease area and the therapy area amongst the doctors, really, okay, and be recognized as a company which disseminates or upgrades the skill sets of the doctors, okay, and as a result of which your brand gets sold. So if you look at Baba Ramdev, many years back, he never had any products. It was basically he built up his brand on education or a dissemination of yoga as a way to improve your health. And eventually, you have the Patanjali brand then coming up and was able to, kind of make a big success out of it, right? So I think it's a long-term thing. Unfortunately, we are blinded more by our short-term requirements, working on month-to-month, monthly closings and and various other KPIs that we need to achieve. But the key really is, how do you develop the market as an organization or as an industry? And the development of the market happens if you're able to upgrade the skills of our influencers or prescribers. I think that is the key, number one. Number two, how do you then enmesh with it diagnostic services for the patients, for better decision making by the doctor? How do you basically look at, so can you look at, for example, tie up with some diagnostic companies as, under your CSR initiative as an industry? Could you look at, from a treatment perspective, how do you basically then get into that entire gamut of complete healthcare, including e-delivery of services, whether it is to doctors or to patients as well? Yeah. So that's the way I'm looking at it, rather than as individual companies trying to focus on our brands and trying to penetrate to the doctors and trying to have a share of voice amongst the 50 other generic companies that that you're playing with, right? I mean, MNCs, again, as I said, even though it's a different ballgame, but the fact remains that today you have so many generics happening or coming out, in the market as well. So that's my take on that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Ketan, Baba Ramdev's example is absolutely an apt, that, first we need to establish the disease and the therapy gap, and then take your brand. And then definitely the brand doesn't have to look back. That's definitely the right way to deal with it. Absolutely. Yeah. Mr. Ashok Kumar Bhattacharya, he is joined back to us. Sir, we have dealt with a couple of questions. We are currently on how do we cater to the tier 2, tier 3 city physicians through the sales and marketing activities. I mean, our concentration always most likely goes for the tier 1 cities when we are developing our brand strategies or the medical scientific strategies. So we were talking about Mr. Ketan and Mr. Amitava has helped us with a couple of pointers. How do we deal with this tier 2, tier 3 cities physicians? So I would definitely want to know from you, because you have been dealing with various sectors, including embassy, and you have had experience to some of the top end healthcare and medical affairs associations as well. So, what do you think? What has been your experience in, because Ketan has brought a very important point of digital technology, and today is a world of digital technology, and everybody wants to move towards digital technology. But do you feel that old is gold is still works, or we should definitely leave aside our previous development of imports? The small cards, LBS, gift, because he also said that gifts should no longer be taken as a main initiatives. We should look at scientific activities as a prima facie to take our brands to the next level. Yes, sir.
So, Dr. Swati, first of all, thanks for really briefing me. I was listening to the
Okay.
comments made by Amitava and Ketan. I was listening to some of the comments. I want to be very honest and fair and extremely candid in this discussion. The first and foremost thing is that the mindset of the Indian pharmaceutical industry has to change. The mindset of the Indian pharmaceutical industry, right from whether it's a owner driven company or it's a public listed company, whatever it is, or a private limited company, the whole and sole aim is just selling. It's not marketing, it's all about selling. All these organizations, including multinationals in the past, have tried to enter into the rural markets, but in what way? It was just carrying the physical stocks, going over there once in a quarter or so in a market and dumping the stocks at the retail level and coming back and showing that we are doing rural marketing. I mean, this is how the industry has been playing. The first and foremost thing is that there has to be a shift. We talk about belief shift when we talk about a brand portrait, and we say for doctors we need a belief shift, that today he or she is believing this and the desired belief is this. First of all, the pharma organizations, all pharma companies should really question themselves and say, am I really, I talk a lot of things as an organization, I talk a lot of things. And the buzzword today is patient centricity. Can I ask my conscience and say that am I patient centric or am I selling centric? Let us ask this question. And the answer which will come is we are selling centric, we are not patient centric. I appreciate the views which Ketan has been talking about, in terms of joining hands with diagnostic companies, ensuring better diagnosis, ensuring better footfall in the clinics, and disseminating the knowledge, the disease area knowledge, the therapy area knowledge. I agree to that. But for that, it's the senior leadership team in an organization which needs to change its mindset from the month-end billing for commercial benefits and financial results to, because all patients don't get sick at the end of the month, number one. Doctors don't prescribe the full month's quota at the end of the month. All these things don't happen. Release that pressure. Number one. Number two, disseminate the knowledge. Dissemination of knowledge at all levels. And as Ketan was mentioning about joining hands and partnering with diagnostic companies and all, it's also time that where the private-public partnership has to come in. Because if you're talking about tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 towns and cities and villages, it's basically a public private partnership which is required. Although today we see in a lot of these tier 2, tier 3 places the emergence of corporate hospitals. There are the Apollos of the world, they're giving their brand to a small hospital and they use as an Apollo, and they're using the brand name Apollo for running a clinic and getting a footfall over there. I mean, these are some of the things which are happening. But what is required is a total shift in mindset of pharmaceutical organization. That's what I would do. And believe me, as Ketan was talking about Ramdev, the example that he gave, I mean, in my last assignment, I don't remember for at least last 5 years, I have ever asked the sales manager in the middle of the month or in the end of the month what's going to be the figures for the month. I've never. It's in the beginning of the month when things are planned, and it went accordingly. Now, the question which many of my colleagues say, you worked for a super specialty product range. You are in the rare disease products or highly super specialty products. Fine. But the one thing is that can we emulate? Let it be a directive from all organizations that don't go to a distributor place at the end of the month and sit over there hours together to beg for orders. Stop that policy. Stop that practice. Don't do that. On the other hand, spend that day in disseminating knowledge with the doctors, which will ensure better footfall of patients in the clinic, which will help in better offtake of the molecules and the brands. I think that's the approach that I would really, and I have practiced, even as a managing director, I have practiced it. I've always told, if you don't achieve your objective, I'm not going to take your job. But if you go and waste your time at the distributor place, you may lose your job. I mean, that's the type of culture that is to be built in. So I agree with Ketan that let us create that awareness and create that culture within an organization which will make this shift altogether.
Yeah, absolutely, sir. We definitely agree with your important points that the mindset needs to be changed. Ketan has also brought in a very important point of diagnostic services. Really, I mean, I think for disease management and therapy gap knowledge upgradation, being a medico, I feel that more than 95% of the pharmas, they do start with a CME as a initiating event, for the brand or disease CME or a roundtable meeting or a panel discussion. That's the first thing that any brand can start. But a diagnostic is something which we have really brought in a new topic on table. So the participants who have attended today's meeting definitely should look at this as a new, entrant or a new feather in your designing campaigns, wherein you, and in the rural areas, having a set of standardized diagnostic services is really difficult for patient. So if you can cater to this, the doctor also will feel that you are doing something for the patient, and it would be non-branded activities. So definitely you will get a mileage out of it. Correct? Yeah. So
Amitav has a point, I think. Dr. Swati, Amitav has a point, has to say
yes,
something.
So,
definitely.
yeah, it's a great thoughts by Ketan as well as Mr. Bhattacharya. So, sir, the unfortunate part is I'm diverting from the topic that, as you sailed the sales, earlier time when we joined the industry, maybe 30 years back, that time it was annual closing. Then we came to know about half yearly closing. Nowadays it is then quarter and month, and maybe tomorrow weekly closing also is going to happen. That is another story, that is the practical fact of the world. Second is the diagnostics. Yes, once upon a time, I believe Ketan will again going back to full fort days. Fortunately, I was also in full fort that time when hepatitis B diagnosis was not available, CML diagnosis was not available. The companies have given them Philadelphia chromosome test or HBV DNA, HBV RNA test, and all these things. So those are the time. Today the world is with thyrocare kind of thing, which is there in every parts. 1mg has come up, Tatas have come up, and they have taken up all over the places. They are sending the people to get the diagnosis. All the blood tests and the critical tests also are available today. Yes, it is not for the masses. People need to pay for it, and particularly when we are talking about the rural India or the second tier, third tier cities, many people are not affording. Many people are having a lot of challenges. For them, something should be done. Definitely, it is a welcome thing, but that is already there. At the same time, doctors' awareness needs to be improved. That is the fact. Second is the patients and the caregivers chain, that population. There needs to be a lot of awareness amongst various things, various disease, various problems, various basic symptoms through which the patients can come on time to the basic primary health centers or something like that. So those things, lot of things are happening. Governments are also doing lot of activities, lot of support. Industry needs to come up for that. A good content, good marketing campaign, good communication, that is first needed. Along with that, these tools needs to be used in the omni channel. It may be through WhatsApp, it may be through mails, it may be through uh, online doctors network platform. There are multiple things today available through which the populations can be reached and can be educated on these things.
Yes.
Right. Absolutely. And let me put a, yes, Mr. Bhattacharya, sorry. I wanted to put a provocative point here. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think
okay.
it would be
So,
nice to have the provocative point first.
yeah, my question that I want to put in front of everybody is, where is the talent in the field force today? I mean, the young generation today has multiple avenues to choose from as career options, number one. Number two, the pharma industry is not necessarily the best paying industry in the world, in India today. Number three, it entails a lot of hard work, working working in the climatic conditions of varied temperature conditions of India. Where do you get that talent, number one? Number two, on the other hand, as you said, attrition today is at very high levels, and post-COVID, you would see, during COVID, not many people change their jobs. But as soon as, things started opening up, you find attrition levels, 30% plus. And then you have a new field force to train. First, they have to understand the product. Then they have to go and communicate with the doctors and educate them about the product. So I think obviously there are challenges here. And when, as a director managing a division, or as a managing director, Mr. Bhattacharya, one of our largest costs in the P&L is actually the field force cost. So, and if you have a field force which kind of changes 1/3 every year, you have your own set of challenges. And that's where I take Amitav's point that, can you actually look at, at a digital mode, for example, have a good mix of communication in terms of reaching out to the customers. Okay, and I think that is where I think the balance needs to be struck between having a sales rep cost versus how much money do you put into digital, and and do we just get into digital because it's new and it's sexy and it helps us kind of reach out to more number of customers, but do we have a way to measure the effectiveness of the digital channel as well, in terms of what is the ROI on that digital channel, either in terms of the education of the customers or in terms of your prescriptions. So that's the kind of thought that I wanted to put on the table for people to think about. Yeah. Sorry, Mr. Bhattacharya. Yes.
Yeah, no, thanks, Ketan. You raised a point which I was just sharing, the session that I was just sharing. I was sharing an HR panel discussion and on the biopharma leaders conclave, and I was sharing the session of HR. And this was one of the things which came on the attrition. Now, first and foremost is that, we need to understand about the attrition, and we need to have the data on attrition. How much of this attrition is a desired attrition and how much of it is an undesired attrition? That is what we need to look at. Then we need to look at various factors, because I was asking some of the top minds of HR in the pharma industry who were present for the Biopharma Leaders Conclave. And I was asking, do you have an analysis of, they only have an analysis of, first 6 months, then first 2 years, first 5 years. That's not what's going to give us any meaningful analysis. They don't have even on the male female percentages in terms of the attrition. It's why the attrition is taking place. What about the exit interviews? When do the exit interviews take place? Do we really know that what has really happened? We keep on talking about that it is financial. No, it's not financial. Did we meet the career aspiration of the candidate who has left, or the employee? Have we done that? Have we overpromised about the culture of the organization at the time of recruitment? So there are a couple of things which are there on the HR front. But at the same breath, Ketan and Amitav, I would really like to mention is that it's not an HR job alone. It's a job of the entire leadership team. The entire leadership, for example, diversity and inclusion. What do we understand by diversity and inclusion? Is it only gender diversity? Or there are more to the diversity part of it? So I think at the leadership level first, the mindset has to change in order to change the culture of the organization. And all these attritions which we are talking of, do we really talk to the employees? Do we really talk about the succession planning? Do we talk about career planning of the candidate? Do we talk about the aspirations of the employee? We don't. How much of distance do we maintain? As a managing director, do I meet all the field staff at least twice a year? Do I meet? How many field staff names do I remember as a managing director or as a commercial director or whatever, or as an HR director? And the answers are that we keep on, blaming others or put the blame on others, but we don't really analyze what is it that is lacking at the leadership level. And I think it's very important. The second thing is, what is happening is the pharma industry is more of a frog in the well. People move from one company to another company. Are we attracting talent from other industries? Are we picking up a marketing head from levers? Or, in pharma recently only, for example, Sanofi had from a telecom company.
Yeah.
Can we change? So basically, if we look at, one thing is, if we want a belief shift with our customers, with our doctors, I think the belief shift should happen within the organization and within the leadership team. That's extremely important. The second is, when we are talking about rural areas or tier 3, tier 4 towns, do we know what is the disease pattern in those areas? Believe me, Dr. Nayak, I have gone to villages which has got only 10,000 population. There is not a tea stall. It's under a tree. Somebody is sitting on a brick and preparing tea and selling. I have gone to those markets to understand. And the biggest problem in a rural market is snake bite. Snake bite, it's not anything else, but snake bite is the number one issue. Do we go and talk to these doctors how to treat a snake bite patient? These are the questions we need to ask before we talk about digital and all those things. Some very elementary stuff is what the pharma is not really adhering to or addressing. I mean, we can get into many things. I mean, we go into with biothiometers and go into for a nerve test, peripheral nerve stimulator, things, and all those in a diabetic clinic. So we want to check about the microvascular complications, and we do it in a metro. How many places do we do it in the metro? That also is a question. We do it selectively where we feel that if we do this camp with this doctor, we will fetch some prescriptions and we will have a sale on that day. So everything is commerce driven. We talk about patient centricity, but to be very honest, we are not patient centric. We are not patient centric. We are only selling centric. So sales centric. We are not even marketing centric. We don't build big brands. Look at my esteemed and colleagues in the panel. How many big brands have been built over the last 10 years? How many big brands have been built? There have been products which have been sold, but brands have not been built. I think that's a question we need to ask. So, I'm sorry if I am being very honest as to what is happening really. This is what I was talking in this conclave also.
Yeah, absolutely well said, sir. We definitely.
Sir, that is the reality. That is the truth. That is the reality, and that is a bigger questions to answer. Probably, you are posing the right questions, right discussion. But maybe this objective of today's discussion is little bit away from that. Whatever the minimum means that we have in the industry, how can we help each other to reach to the masses and make more knowledge and educations and bring the awareness level on certain therapeutic area which is more common in general.
I agree with you, Amitav. I agree with you that the objective is how do we bridge the gap between the industry and the healthcare professional in terms of knowledge sharing. So one of the things is, of course, through our salespeople. The other is through the medical, and therefore the role of MSLs is increasing, and organizations are realizing that the role of medical and the role of MSLs is far more important than anything else. Because if you have to disseminate knowledge within the healthcare, MSLs play an important role for that. Because we do a lot of CMEs or roundtables or all, but again, what is the objective behind it? But when an MSL goes, it's a real science driven, and it's a dissemination of knowledge which takes place by the medical service liaison. So medical plays a tremendously important role in dissemination of knowledge and ensuring early diagnosis and better therapeutic delivery for the patient. That's my belief.
Absolutely.
Yes,
I think
we need to definitely work upon our sales team empowerment and their knowledge upgradation. But let me just take you all panelists towards the activities that we need to look at for these physicians who are from tier 2, tier 3 cities. So what kind of support a pharma industry can provide to improve the skill set of these doctors? I mean, one is digital media, but do we all agree
I think,
that?
So if I can take that answer quickly, in some of my earlier assignments, right, whether it was in nephrology or ophthalmology, or some of those super specialty work that where I was a brand manager or a business leader, one of the things that we did was basically have training of these doctors, in a center of excellence. So you could identify centers of excellence and get these doctors down. You could have wet labs, where they could actually perform some of those surgeries for example, medical, biomedical, what do you call that, medical equipments, or even for, your, surgical implants, etc., where you
medical
could actually
simulation you are referring to? Are you referring to medical simulation, Ketan?
No, you actually get down to an OT, and then you actually, kind of do a hands-on work on how to, use a medical device or whatever, where they could, kind of do that in ophthalmology as well. Using of the machines, for example, if there's medical equipment associated with it. In nephrology, I remember that many of the government institutions have got, you could tie up with one of the units, for example, nephrology unit at SGPGI, to train some of the doctors in UP, for example, get these doctors together. And it doesn't cost you much because they have hostel facilities, they have food facilities. What you need to really pay for is a travel, which typically is by train or by road. So, these are activities which you could do to kind of get doctors from rural areas, to, as we said, depending on the need of the disease profile in that particular area, the rural area, or the area that you would want to focus on. I think that is another way to look at it. Could you, so that's basically my take, where you could actually train some of these doctors with hands-on experience at centers of excellence, is the way I would look at it. Is one of the ideas that I have.
Yeah.
Amitav?
So are you referring to something called as doctor exchange program from rural cities?
Yeah, you whatever name you would give it. Basically, it is whatever name you would give it, right? I mean, it's basically to go there and learn either from an opinion leader or from a good center, how to manage a certain condition. It's all that we're seeing, right? Yeah. I mean, there's another thing that you could look at is also holistic healing. I mean, sorry, Mr. Bhattacharya, just 2 minutes. Is holistic healing, can you actually merge Ayurveda and allopathy together, for example, because, merge in the sense, look, it's about mind body, connection as well, and the balance in your body. And, and then there are certain very good elements of Ayurveda. Can you actually train some of those doctors on that as well? Yeah, because many of your diseases are actually psychosomatic disorders. You would actually treat it through, either healing or through yoga or whatever, as well. Okay. Sorry. Yes, Mr. Bhattacharya.
Yeah, one second.
I agree on that point. The only thing is that, we need to understand about the disease, particularly about the disease that we are going to talk about. So, in the rural area, like Dr. Naik, you just mentioned about, is it a doctor exchange program or what, that from rural you come to urban and urban goes to rural? So
Yes.
it is, for example, the example that, the one that I quoted, snake bite, for example. So, you can take doctors from the urban area to the rural area, train them, which are more dissemination of knowledge as to how to treat and manage a snake bite. For example, diarrhea, the second biggest incidence in the rural area is diarrhea. Then it comes to fever. So how do they manage that? But at the same time, as Ketan mentioned, you can also bring doctors, for example, how to do a suture. So bring them into a tier 2 town, which is nearer, and train them on how to suture a wound or wound management, because in the villages, the wounds are also very common. So those are certain things which can be done by bringing it over here. The other thing which you mentioned is, train the doctors, like you were talking about ophthalmology. If you remember, J&J had their training center of excellence when they used to get into all their surgical implants and other things. There was a center of excellence where doctors were brought to the center of excellence and they were trained, hands-on training for the doctors. So now, for example, something which is happening is training the doctors on stroke, because stroke has become a very critical thing today. And therefore, and if you know that, very recently stroke has been included after a lot of persuasion under the scheme of Ayushman Bharat. It has now got included for treatment. So, how to treat stroke. There are in a city like Bombay, only 30 or 40 specialists are there who can treat stroke. If it happens in a city like Bombay, so just well imagine what's the state. So that's an area, we can pick up that area and start training more number of doctors on how to manage stroke.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
The dissemination of knowledge should be hands-on on these areas.
Got
So
it.
yes,
Well, thank you.
we
That's a
need
very
to,
important.
yeah, that's a very important point, that we need to cater to what the doctors or physicians in the tier two, tier three cities desire to learn, to upgrade their knowledge all about. I agree, Mr. Bhattacharya sir, that the infections, snake bites are the predominant diseases that we see in the rural areas. But I think there is a mind block by maybe a brand manager or a salesperson, because it's not a brand centric event or a brand centric disease that they are trying to cater to. There is a resistance to reach out to the doctor for their needs. So I think the panelists are bringing a point that we need to cater to the needs of the doctors, what exactly they want to learn, rather than what we want to make them learn, right? I have a
Absolutely.
question. Yeah, I have a question to Mr. Amitav. Is what kind of doctor awareness programs should pharma industries take, or somebody like DocMode Health Technologies, they should initiate the activities for catering to these physicians in the tier 2, tier 3 cities? Do you think about some differentiated activities for these physicians?
Yeah, definitely. Before I took up nephrology, um, I was not much aware. I was aware about creatinine, serum creatinine, etc. But the significance of creatinine is nothing without the GFR calculation.
Absolutely.
And anywhere, even you and any doctors, any patients, if somebody goes, a layman going to a doctor for checkup, they will more concern about diabetes, sugar, HB1C, hypertension, lipids, bilirubin, etc. Creatinine 1.1 is fine, but that 1.1 at the age of 65 can be a stage 3B kidney disease. So the awareness level amongst the physician, I'm giving one example, is this much. If the physician don't give importance, and within 7 months, 8 months, 1 year time, the patient is landing in stage 4 or stage 5.
Yeah.
At that time, you have no option but to go for dialysis or renal displacement therapy, transplant, etc., etc. So what needs to be done? A large scale with the ISN and the relevant bodies, the work is on to create this is one thing. Similarly, there is problem of liver cirrhosis, liver things, cancer. Every disease is having its own basics. So this level of awareness at the physician's level through digital medium, and then putting it into the doctor network platform or doc mode kind of things, to create lakhs and lakhs of doctors should be educated with the help of core nephrologist, um, Indian Society of Nephrology. They are ready to partner with it, and with that the knowledge is going to lakhs and lakhs of physicians on entire, not only in CKD, one piece of it, glomerular disease, there is stone without how to understand that, what are the medical management, what is the protein, how to detect a diabetic patients with kidney disease. Like that, there are many things that came out. And today, huge amount of work is being done in creating awareness for kidney amongst the physician. So this is one example which is currently working on, and I believe that this is going to help large number of patients detect early and can get to the right doctor, right center for the right treatment, and the life of the kidney can be extended. Similarly, heart patients are also required to be understood and treated in right way. Salt restriction is a big thing. The salt, everybody knows. One doctor told that, the patient came and told, I have restricted entire salt. बोला, खाना कैसे खाते हो, थोड़ा pickle ले लेते हैं. We take little pickle. How much pickle salt is having, that God knows. So these are the problem in our masses, in our awareness things, which needs to be addressed in the right way. And a phygital model, whether it is physical meeting of the customers by the reps in a better communicated manner, along with that physical CMEs, RTMs can be there. Apart from that, the digital is we learned through the COVID, the 2 years time, that yes, many things can be done digitally. Like this kind of meeting which we are doing, we were never thinking like this possible 3 years back. Today, it is the world's reality that we are all meeting like this, and that is a big thing that helped the whatever the positive sides of COVID. I will say we have moved faster by at least 10 years or so. So this kind of awareness, and that is need in every city, even in metro cities with little slum populations or little lower side populations, physicians level. There are huge number of physicians across the country, including the metros, and those physicians also needs to be treated or educated, brought awareness for the various disease. Uh, so this is what I feel can be done in the by the pharma industry to help create the knowledge of therapy.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Amitav.
Good.
I think all our panelists do agree that the digital medium is the key, or it's a trump card for going in future as well. So, what are those digital media activities, or anything something that you would like to suggest to our new aspirants? That everybody is doing webinars now. I think doctors have really the days have gone where the doctors used to say no for attending physical meetings, but at times doctors do also say in one day, because all the webinars happening on Saturdays, Sundays. So the doctors are saying there are 4 webinars, which one should I attend? So what is there any other way that you all can suggest one activity through a digital medium?
Before that, Dr. Naik, Amitav, I am in your city where I am having these programs in Hyderabad, and I met a couple of top doctors also who happens to be my very good friends. I wanted to check. I have done a check in Bombay. I have done a check in Chennai, and I was just talking to some of the very senior doctors in Hyderabad. We all talk about the COVID times and the digital. Have we really ever measured what has been the impact of that digital? Some of these doctors told me, see, we do a lot of market research with some of the top doctors who play to the gallery because they want to show that they are abreast of everything which is latest. And when it comes to the practice, they don't do any of those things. They don't do. They don't
True.
walk the talk. They don't walk the talk. And these are some of the top doctors whom we include in all our market research, in all our pre-launch research. We include them. And we draw a conclusion, Dr. So-and-so told, like that. So I was just asking them, and they were telling me, Are Ashok, these representatives and pharma company आता था बोलता था सर आप लॉग इन तो कर लो बस उसका बाद छोड़ दो आपको अटेंड नहीं करने का लॉग इन खाली कर लो मेरा नौकरी बच जाएगा. These were the comments.
Right, true.
Yes.
You are right. You are right. There is two kind of things. I agree. So as I was talking about the mass media this physicians campaign with the nephrologist. We ensure that the videos that we were loading is not more than 10 to 12 minutes. We have understood that during this the initial time of the COVID, there were a lot of people who were coming because anyway they were also sitting ideal. So they were coming. Second learning is that in the COVID time that doctors were finding it that for one meeting I need not to travel all the way 4-5 hours. I was wasting here within half an hour, 1 hour time I am attending. So that kind of thing they have appreciated because at initial time people were fed up before that with every day some meeting, there is a dinner and all these things. So they were enjoying for the first few months. After that, the fatigue started.
Yes.
Curve has
Agreed.
come down. And then there is some people where there is a value add is there. People were attending, people knew that there is a value additions with the content the topic, the agenda, the speaker, that is very important. The kind of engagement, the kind of panel that is coming up, that is important, because of which people were participating. If there is a general talk, then definitely what you have said is 200% correct, and most of the time it used to happen. Then the many doctors said that stop these things because nobody is coming. They also got this feedback, so they were stopping it. The model which I was talking of, the doctor network platform, where short videos of 10-15 minutes were loaded, 10 to 12 minutes, 15 minutes max, I'm telling, where at least 5 minutes, 7 minutes, if somebody sees and understands that another 5 minutes is there, people were listening to it. We are having data that how much time they have logged in, how much
Login.
time they have viewed that. All these data are also available, of course, through the DNP platform. Um, we don't have, as a ethics, we don't have the access to the individual doctors thing. So whatever the average that is coming out, we have to accept it. That is a flaw, that is a gap that is there. But there is definitely some benefits, I believe, can happen over the period of time. Important is the content has to be very strong. The speakers, the deliberations must be good, and then only the, as we said, that we were also suggesting that whatever the doctors want, if we can get kind of content, then there is more buying in. And digital is not the only way, it is one of the way. Phygital is the way, physical plus digital combinations as per the requirement, we can get into it. Because many a time, because of physical, that people changes, the repetitive changes, and again there is a gap. So those gaps can be in between touched upon by the direct marketing, which can be helpful for the doctors connect.
Absolutely
Yeah.
right, Amitav. I think what you have mentioned is absolutely critical. And Dr. Naik, is in the doc mode when you are asked, when you are posing this question as to what is it that we can do to bridge the gap, knowledge gap, between the pharma industry and the healthcare professional, I think Amitav has touched the right thing. That is a combination of both. It's a combination of physical dissemination of knowledge, and second is the digital way of communicating. Now, the digital way of communicating has to be extremely, extremely attractive, and it has to be very user friendly. It has to be short, it has to be crisp, and it has to be user friendly. For example, a doctor may not be able to attend a webinar at a time when it is being conducted. Can we do something and give a password to that doctor, that the doctor, while he or she is traveling from clinic to home or is traveling somewhere, just clicks that on the mobile and listens to it? Because readability on the travel may be poor, but they can hear it and they can listen to that webinar. So that is something which will make interesting. And one of the Singapore-based organization is trying this out and has been very successful in this type of a digital activity with the doctors. And it has been tested, and doctors in some of the parts of Asia have really appreciated that one thing is we don't have to read or anything. We just click in over there and we listen like we listen to music, and it's very short. It's creating. And the other thing which on the digital which was said was some of the recent advances which are happening in the field of therapeutics is where the doctors are digitally being sent that this is the latest thing which has happened. If you are interested, please let us know, and we will come to you with more information. So you are also sure that the doctor is accessing your digital invitation for that, and then you get an opportunity to interact with the doctor at a later stage and inform. It happened with rare diseases like Fabry, Gaucher, and all. It happened over the last 6 months. So but I just wanted to share some of the practices as a consultant, where I have an access to many organizations, what they are doing, and what are some of the best practices which doctors are embracing. So I'm just sharing that without naming any organization.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for
Thank you.
sharing all those comments and important feedbacks from those organizations. Thank you. I really like the terminology. You said phygital, right, Mr. Banerjee? Phygital. It's really a nice terminology that you have coined of having a physical connect and a digital communication. Wonderful. So, Ketan, would you like to add to it, or because we have
No, I think
surpassed
no,
our
we're
time?
fine. I think we're probably running out of time, so I'm sure there are some
Yeah, yeah,
questions
yeah.
from the audience as well. So we can
Yes,
take that.
yes. I'll just take two questions if you don't mind, and I would request all the panelists to just request to be brief. One question from Smita is, how can government support to bridge the knowledge gap in rural markets? Ketan, would you like to take that?
Sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
How
Government
can
support?
government support? How can government support to
Yeah,
bridge the knowledge gap in
I
rural
think we
markets?
did talk about. I think Mr. Bhattacharya did talk about the PPP model, the public-private partnership model, where we could
Okay.
possibly, look at either CSR initiatives or working through the governments to, create awareness on, create awareness or enhance learning of our doctors. As I said, we also have about 6 lakh Ayush doctors working in India and 13 lakh allopathic doctors. So if you're really talking about allopathy, and you want to upgrade the knowledge of the Ayush doctors on allopathy, then that is something that you could use it as well. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Thank you very much. One more question, as I think there is too much on plate for a sales and marketing team because of advancements, technological advancement, and all. But still, the image of a medical representative is still caged as a sellers of medicine. How do we transform that image from a seller of medicine to a communicator of a knowledge? So, who would like to take that? Amitava, you would like to take that?
Yeah, as Mr. Bhattacharya was talking, sir was already talking about the kind of pressure the people used to get. They ultimately became a salesman.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when we started the industry, I can tell you that that time selling was definitely there. Sales skills were always taught, but there was a good marketing, good communication in clinic discussions, and then there were a lot of time was there for therapy discussions. The understand the doctors were limited, the people, the pharma industry was limited, and they were having good equity and discussions amongst the doctor. Most of the time, it was a pleasant task. Currently, doctor is earlier 10 people were meeting, today 50 people are meeting to the doctor. The time is restricted. Everywhere there is a huge entry barrier, particularly post COVID. The hospitals and the clinics found it a way to put a barrier for the all the pharma industry to come in. It's a huge challenge. It's a huge challenge to meet the doctor physically. So in that short time, they don't have much of option. They have to deliver the brand, they have to deliver the communication. So that's a huge challenge. Top of that, they have a pressure of making, and they are also impatient. The pharma reps are also today impatient. They want to grow by leaps and bounds in every year, every hour. So that's another problem for them. With all these things, entry into the hospital is a challenge. So communication, and companies are also not taking that much of interest to create that kind of resource, create that kind of talent by educating, training the people. That has also come down substantially when I compared, 30, 40 years back. So those kind of time of training is definitely not there today. So in this uh, capsule, it became a capsule for the reps. Marketeers have a big role in that 1 minute time, 60 seconds time, 30 seconds time. How can they make the communication such that they can effectively communicate, create an opportunity for the doctor to hook it to some digital connect, and through that the doctor can be trained properly. So these are the big tasks by the marketeer that they need to work on it. Currently, everybody is in a rush, whether it is a marketing guy, whether it is a sales guy. Unfortunately, that's the reality. Maybe the organization is having that pressure cooker is going on and the cities are blowing continuously. So that is the challenge that we are facing right now in the industry. People need to be more sharper. The marketing team needs to be more sharper to create very meaningful communication to be delivered in 30 seconds, 40 seconds kind of thing. Then only we can try to create a hook and connect them to digitally to get the message delivered. Otherwise, there is very difficult time. People are meeting the doctors in the corridor, in the parking lot. Still, that is going on by many hospitals. That's a pity, but that's the truth.
Yeah, true that. Yeah, very well said, Mr. Banerjee. Thank you
Dr.
so much, sir. We have
Dr. Naik, can I
overshot our time. I'm sorry, but we have overshot our time, sir. It's 4:20. I would request all the panelists to conclude, and if you could just give one or two line pulse to our participants. We
We'll
can take
start
it up
with
in the next.
Mr.
Yeah,
Bhattacharya.
Mr. Bhattacharya, I would
Start with Mr.
request you to
Bhattacharya.
just give concluding remarks. Yeah.
my submission would be stop begging for a prescription from a doctor. Stop begging, because paint a patient picture in the communication, create a need for your product. The doctor will definitely pick it up, but don't beg for it. Don't beg for a prescription. So please prescribe are the two words which should be out of the dictionary of the pharma sales organizations. That's how I would look at, and paint a patient picture. You can be differentiated. The doctor meets in a corridor, 4 people, but also within that, he or she calls one inside the clinic and say, "Are tum aa jao jara, come," and talks. There may be two things. One is what is happening, the give and take, maybe for that discussion, or maybe for some knowledge discussion. So it can be either of the two. So I'm not going to comment on that. But the thing is, like Amitav was talking, I was remembering when he was in full Ford, Amitav used to talk. You never asked the doctor to prescribe garamycin. You
We were told,
disseminated the knowledge of gentamicin. You spoke about the bacterial resistance. You spoke about the spectrum coverage. That is how you spoke about Pseudomonas. And that is where you used to get your prescriptions for garamycin.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So because we were taught to
because you were trained
not
that way.
to talk. One is
Amitav,
thank you, doctor.
Yeah.
Thank you, doctor, for the prescription.
But
And please
sir,
prescribe.
the irony is today maybe a sales and marketing personnel will get a feedback that we have already learned this from some other XYZ pharma company. So poor guy
Yeah,
in
so
the field is
I
definitely
think
under a
what
lot of challenges. Yeah.
Basically, the leadership team in pharma organizations should have a mind shift. Number one.
Yes,
Number
definitely,
two,
definitely.
if that mind shift happens, and if we invest on training and development of all our commercial guys, I am
Yes.
sure that
Yes.
the image of the industry will have a 360-degree turn, and we will the sales reps will enjoy the same respect which Amitav was talking about 30 years back when the doctor used to stand up and greet us.
Yes.
I
So
think that
definitely
same
being a
respect will come
yes.
back.
Yes,
And
yes.
doc mode can play a vital role in terms of bridging the gap which is there between the
Yes.
industry and the healthcare professional by being as complementing the efforts of disseminating knowledge to the healthcare professional. I see a vital role that DocMod can play.
Yes, sir. Yes, definitely.
You know,
Being a medico, I can definitely correlate with it, and I think a value addition at the doctor's
yes,
scientific knowledge and
absolutely.
expertise,
Because there will
technical
be
expertise. Yes,
credibility.
that is required.
There will
Yes,
be a lot of credibility to the information that you will be
yes,
disseminating.
correct.
And that is what
Because,
will help in bridging that gap. And
sure,
DocMod
sir.
has got a great role to play in that.
Definitely, sir. Definitely. DocMod would really
Yeah.
look forward to do all these new initiatives, take the important takeaways from this meeting. Ketan, would you like to say a couple of
I
lines
think
as a concluding
all that
remarks?
I would like to say is,
All right.
think out of the box, think differently.
Yes,
Yes.
Understand the learning pattern of the doctor. How does he like to learn? Is it digital? Is it physical? Through contact? Is it reading? Or is it through attending conferences, seminar? And if you are able to use data analytics to really segregate your doctors, then you can better target your customers accordingly. Based on how they learn, and which could probably be more effective
yeah,
than trying to have one size fits all kind of an approach. But
correct.
digital is an
Absolutely.
important road, and I think important role to
Yeah.
play. And let's hope. And important thing is, how do we look at measuring the returns, whether it is from your sales force or from your MSLs or from your digital or from the other marketing activities that you would have. So you need to understand the role that it plays in your investment, and what kind of return does it give you. That's it. Amitav, all yours.
Yeah,
Thank you. I think I have already concluded before this one only. So, I was talking about the same thing. So, thanks a lot for giving this opportunity to have a great discussion. Thanks, Dr. Bhattacharya and Mr. Ketan, Dr.
Thank you,
Swati,
Amitav.
for
yeah.
making it very
Thank you
lively.
so much.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank
a
you,
lot for
Amitav.
Thank you
your
so
Thank you,
much.
Mr. Bhattacharya. Thank you,
And thank you to
Ketan.
all the participants who listened to us patiently as well. Huh? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, yes,
Thank you,
definitely.
everybody.
I
Yeah,
think
thank you.
I would like to thank all our expert panelists. I would like to thank all the sales and marketing personals and participants who have joined this meeting today. And thanks to DocMod as well for initiating such a wonderful new platform for, it's really a gap bridging between a doctor. Being a doctor, I could really correlate with it. I was first thinking whether I should be there or not, but it really opened some of the areas that I can contribute for this meeting and for the new aspirants who have joined for today's meeting. We have had a lot of new learnings and expertise from our expert panelists who shared their own experiences and the pulse of their practice. I'm sure that will help all of you to cater to your doctors, to your customers, and to your organization for meeting your standards and going to a higher level. Okay, I
Sure.
wish you all the
Thank you.
best, and thank you all the panelists. Thank you, Doc Mode. Thank you. We'll meet
And
soon.
I
Ketan.
want to thank Amrita as well, because, yeah, thank you so much. Bye. Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you.